Oh, well, good Saturday morning, afternoon. What is it? I don't know, somewhere a little after 11. I had to run to town today, and good job, Rick. Good job. We did chores and fed cows and watered everybody, and fuck, the wind is bad out there today. Son of a... So, little maintenance on the jack here. We gotta give her a little fucking lubricants on these wheels. One thing always pisses me off at the fucking garage is nobody ever wants to lube up the fucking wheels on these jacks, and then they're fucking hell to drag around. So I try to do that on my own stuff on a halfway regular basis. Especially since we don't have a hoist yet. This little girl's gonna be our fucking bread and butter maker here. I probably should get another one, but we'll see. I don't, these are probably the best jacks I found. If you catch the bastards when they're on sale, you can save a lot of money, but otherwise paying retail for them, like, ugh. One kick-ass thing I like about this JB80, they got the little straw holder molded into the cap there. Because otherwise it's taped to the side of the can, which is all good and fine until you use it the first time. And then either you got to have a fucking roll of scotch tape or something laying around so you can tape the bastard back on there. When you put it in there with all the other cans, the fucking straw gets knocked off. Get off top of there. Stop scratching that toolbox. That fucker's nice yet. So when you put it back in here, it knocks fucking straw off. And that didn't work very well. I try to keep a couple extra ones around instead of throwing the straws away, but I don't know what I did with them. Yeah. So whatever, you can always rob them off another can, but then that becomes a perpetual problem too. And then there's that grease point right here. We want to give her a little shot of grease. Look at that, Luke. Oil, lubricant, and grease. One fucking vidya. One vidya. Huh? Where's the grease gun? Over here. One of the grease guns, fucking tube, the grease is leaking. See how that shelf turned blue? Pissed me off. Whatever. I just gotta put a rag mat down there. Pig mat or something. Not that this feller needs a lot of grease here, but it certainly helps to give it a couple of pumps. Some of these fuckers, oh, Rick, you gotta have a battery on it, Rick. That would be good, huh? Hey, good load. Okay. These little... Just say, I'll be surprised if that little metric fucking greaser will take the grease. So, I'll grab a rag. Get a rag, Rick. Get a rag. Where are my rags at? Damn it. I'm losing my mind around here. You got a rag. I want a paper towel rag for... When you're going to get a lot of grease on something, I like to use the paper towel rags because the wife washes the rags, the other rags, that aren't terrible. So we're going to put a real grease fitting on this fucking thing because... Well, why not? What the hell did I just throw on the floor? Oh, tape measure. It's not funny. what size that's going to be. Quarter? No. 7 mil? No. 8 mil? Wow. It's actually 8 millimeter? Probably not. Almost dropped it. See how those are fucking a little bit different? Let's grab a regular grease zerk and I'll show you the difference here. All right, you see the difference there? It's not a lot, but it's enough that the grease gun on this one, it won't snap onto that son bitch, and it won't seal up in grease. So we'll replace it with this one. Hopefully, I think it'll thread in there. So let's get it. My wife is off to baby Miles' birthday party to bring food for it. We're gonna do our own birthday celebration with him because I'm not exactly a people person, and otherwise he'll be Grandpa's buddy all day and nobody else will get to pay attention to him. So whatever. I'd rather have our own time anyway, so. Come on. Okay, I already see how this is going to start out. It's not exactly the same, and I'm trying to look at those threads to make sure they're okay. So, I'm going to vice grip it. I'm going to clamp onto that fucker and use the vice grip to get it started so I can put a little down pressure on it. Because even in a shallow socket, these things are kind of a little bit of a bastard. But I want to be able to have a grease zerk on here because let's see if that'll work. It wants to go crooked in there. Okay. That's better. See if that works. That's much nicer. You can hear it actually pumping grease into the thing. Hear that? Nice! For that jack, those things are going to be filled right up now. Perfect. Now we could go check our level, but we're not. It's actually, I know that it's full because I just checked it the other day because this thing doesn't, the jack oil in this fucker does not work where the fuck when it's cold out. So it's too thick. It's the weight of it's too heavy because I had it in the back of the truck and then it did not want to work. And I thought it was out. Well, it's not. So I'd have to put some synthetic in it if you're gonna be using it in the cold. I don't plan on using it in the cold too much. I have a Harbor Freight jack for that kind of shit. So the other thing you want to do, aside from checking the hydraulic oil in it, the jack oil, and we do have some jack oil over there if I need it, I believe. There's a bottle over there. I like to lock them fuckers so they're not popping open in there. These Crescent fucking ratchets, they're back asswards from all the other ones on the lever. Drive a fucking guy nuts. Whatever. Your pad, make sure that fucker's good and oiled and greased up. Mostly because if it seizes in there, you can't build other fixtures to go in there, because I like to be able to put other stuff in, make and fabricate lifting brackets and other things that will go in there for rear ends and things like that. So yeah, other than a little bit of brake cleaner, probably wipe her down a little bit just for cosmetic purposes, we'll get to working on this Buick. It's Mountain Dew. It's customer pay. So we're working on this 2005. I thought it was an 06, but it doesn't matter. Buick Lacrosse. We're going to do rear brakes on this thing, and I'll explain a couple of things to you as we go here. Pads, rotors, calipers. Right now, I'm gravity bleeding the brakes. This one's taking a little bit. I do have a vacuum bleeder that we'll go over at another time if I need it. It might be on this application. I don't know. So another thing to note here, you'd want to tell your customer about if you're working on it. We're on low setting here, so we need to do that so it's not flashing at you. But stabilizer link's busted off. Chances are the one on the other side is as well. But we'll see when we get that side off. So I'm gravity bleeding this right now. You can see we got brake fluid starting there. We're going to give that a little bit to start getting a good drip going. There you go. Perfect. We'll close that bleeder screw up and get on to the other side, and we'll dive into it. I figured I'd save you the time and the hassle of watching me do both sides. We'll just do one and fucking be done with it. All right, before we dive into the brakes too much here, I figured I'd go over a few of the things that I use because I kind of haven't done that in a video before. So you've seen all these tools individually or own them yourselves, but a couple of lights here. I like to use this one for inspection. Just, it's small. It's a Mac Tools light. I don't remember the number. It's like a CL150 MRC. I like this little light. Keep it in your pocket. Works good. When I'm actually working on the stuff, this is kind of my go-to. Sits in the fender well, real well. It doesn't get in your way. It's kind of nice. And then when I need some more general light, I use that larger light that I got from my brother-in-law, Scott Forland. That's sitting over on the toolbox over there. This little cordless die grinder, they call it a buffing tool. Super handy. Cordless impact wrench. It's just a lifesaver versus running a pneumatic one. I do have several pneumatic ones, but I prefer to use cordless where I can. Wrenches, gear wrenches, standard wrench, whatever, pliers, just miscellaneous sockets depending on your application. Now obviously we have the parts here, hammer, pry bar, and another ratchet. So, and then our jack, and on this vehicle, because this vehicle has 286,000 miles on it, so the pinch welds are pretty well gone. I'll get you in here. Oh, get off that ratchet. I'll get you in here, let you see. There ain't much for pinch weld left there to actually be lifting this thing on. So inboard of that, there is the subframe unibody structure that you can use to lift the vehicle. Once that's gone, well, chances are you're not lifting that vehicle anymore. We also got a magnetic tray that we stick on the jack there, throw your lug nuts and your hardware and stuff in. I need to get in a better habit of that versus throwing it underneath that seat. And then a drain pan, keep all your brake fluid and all that stuff off the floor. Let's dive into it, shall we? Move our hubcap. So as you can see, the brakes on this are in less than good condition. It has been sitting for a period of time, and the calipers haven't been working, so that's why we're going to address that today. We need to pinch off another tool I need to show you here. So in a previous video, I've used vice grips to pinch off the brake hose, and some people didn't seem to prefer that versus a hose pinch off tool. Now I have hose pinch off tools, but they are not here. And I've used vice grip without any problem for a long time, but if you don't have a vice grip, and for those that don't like to see me use a vice grip, I'll give you an alternative. You need all those pliers? Get a cable tie, right? And break the cable tie. Don't use those ones, Rick. Now again, this isn't an application or method that I'd use on a regular basis, but for those that didn't like it the way I did it before, how do you like me now? Just saying. So we got our pan underneath here because we're going to take our brake hose off immediately, and you're going to have some serious hand strength to actually be able to pinch that all the way off. I don't know that I have it pinched off all the way yet. Well, far enough to break another cable tie. You get the idea. Doesn't need to be clipped on there hard by any means. Remove your banjo bolt. Pop your line free. I kicked my rag out of the way on accident there. So on this one, the other side had two different bolts that held the caliper bracket on, I should say. Because we're replacing this assembly, I'm not actually going to take it apart. We're just going to take out two bolts that hold the bracket on, remove the caliper with the bracket. Again, if you watched previous videos, overstrike. Your tool guys will love you, especially when you're hammering on a gear wrench and overstriking on it with a hammer. I hope you got a good relationship with your tool guy. I'll show him the video when he comes this week. It'll be fine. That's tight. Oh. Some of these have Loctite on them. With as many miles as on this vehicle, I would doubt that they've been, I can tell you for a fact that they haven't been, they aren't original brakes. And they would have been done at least a couple of times. bolt. Well, again, because we're replacing the entire assembly. And there's no core charge on it because we purchased brand new Raybestos Element 3 coated calipers. Now, I was going to get, because it's going to be work car, it's going to get driven in the winter, I was going to get Element 3 on everything. However, the pads in Element 3 and the rotors were currently on back order. This is probably the most critical part if you can get it in coated. And being it's an aluminum caliper, they don't coat that, but the bracket is steel or cast and it's coated. That'll keep your pads from sticking in the damn bracket so bad. So, now we've got that. You want to spin that bearing, make sure it's not, doesn't sound noisy, so that's good. Otherwise we're running to the parts store to get a bearing for it. Doing that today, so we don't need to we don't need to do that. The hub is nice and clean on it. At first I thought it was anti-seize, but it doesn't appear to be, because otherwise I'd look like the Tin Man already. So let's talk parking brake, because this has cable operated parking brake on it that I promise you does not work. I would 100% guarantee that. First of all, we're gonna get the cable off here. And again, because we're not paying core charge on any of these, we don't have to return them as a usable core. We can throw them in the scrap pile. This is where the cable clips in. I'm gonna show you here. Where this cable locks in, you would actually have to extend that cable around and then snap it back into this. What we're gonna do, we'll come around here, we're gonna take our cutoff wheel on our cutoff tool, die grinder, whatever you wanna call it, and we're gonna cut it right there. That way that cable can come out this way. Like so. So now you don't have to try to extend that cable. And the reason I don't want to try to extend that cable is because that cable's going to stick. If I try to extend that cable, it's going to stick. And then we're either going to have a problem with trying to hook it back up, which we're going to discuss that in a minute, because we're not. Otherwise, or you're going to have to try to sell the customer new parking brake cables, and they'll say, well, I never used the parking brake. Now, granted, Minnesota is not an inspection state. If you live in an inspection state and you have to have that stuff checked, that's your deal. Sound like I got a cow out. Oh, just messy and windy. Okay. So, if you live in an inspection state where that stuff is mandatory and it has to be checked, you're going to have to replace it. But chances are it's been used. I guarantee you that parking brake hasn't been used for 200,000 plus miles, probably ever. And being able to hook that back up and make it functional without either pulling on that brake caliper and causing the brakes to drag, and then we have premature brake failure, and then you're going to have a discussion with your customer as to whose fault that is. Because should you replace the brake cable, whatever. In this situation, we're going to clip it in, it's going to be intact, and we have a discussion with the customer about whether they want it hooked up or not, and we go from there. So, your parking brake actuates by clipping in here, and this lever would move forward in this direction to your left. And it has a screw inside. There's a screw that would force the piston out, grip the pads against the rotor, and it would set the parking brake. Now, again, it's a parking brake. It's not an emergency brake. They don't call them emergency brakes anymore. They call them parking brakes. They're not for brake failures. They don't work for brake failures. And if you apply this thing, it will not release, I promise you. You apply that and pull that rusted cable back into that casing, it will never come back out. Not ever. You have an immense amount of leverage when you push on that brake pedal in there. So we'll throw you back on here and I'll show you how I get that little ball and socket, that little crimped end on there. It's just like a leaded end. It's probably a steel end now. Steel end that's been crimped onto the end of the cable. You can see it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but it's a heck of a lot better than fighting with it to get it off there. And I might take this corner down with the cutoff wheel just a little bit more. Safety glasses on. Now again, we don't want to cut our cable off. We want it to be intact. That way, if the customer decides that they do want, in fact, want it hooked up, I know this customer well, and I know their answer. I don't even need to you see how that will come over there? Now the cable's disconnected and we didn't pull it out of the casing. We go ahead and pull that out of its bracket. In some instances you have to release these small tabs here. In this application you don't, because they don't actually engage into those pockets anymore. So we'll go set this off the drain and we'll bring it back. Okay, so brake rotor, slide that on. Again, our hub is nice and clean on this one. I like to take a lug nut on some of these applications and see how it's relieved on the end there. Relieved, whatever. I like to throw it on there backwards because you don't have to thread it on as far. And just hold that rotor nice and snug. You don't have to tighten it up a lot. Worst case scenario, you gotta take a box end wrench and crack it loose, take it back out. So there's that. You're gonna have to separate the caliper and the bracket. I mean, if you really wanted to get in there and try to stick the pads in, you could. I don't have my 3/8 impact here, so we're just using our 1/2 inch with an adapter. Just watch when you're doing that, otherwise you'll guillotine your fingers. That'll make for a bad day for you. So you go ahead and use our old caliper bracket bolts, and most times you're not going to get bolts for the caliper bracket. You will get bolts for the caliper, obviously, but $13mm head on these. Again, all applications are different. On the other side, one was 13mm, one was 19mm because it had been replaced with another bolt. At 286,000 miles, that stuff happens. tight. So we got our, got our caliper here. We're gonna go ahead and throw our pads in first. Now this has that little squeak pad depth indicator that has to go on the inside on this application. You can't put it on the outside. It doesn't fit with the bracket. Outside pad's on. Now this cable, so it doesn't fall out and drag on the ground, we still want to clip it in to the bracket on the caliper. We're just not going to engage it with the lever. So that's clipped on there. These are 12 millimeter in this application. Seems like that's pretty common on these new Ray Bestis calipers. Now for your, you want to make sure this end is nice and clean on here for your brake hose. That sealing surface. These calipers came with a plastic baggie with a couple of copper washers in them. You're going to want to reuse, or not reuse your old ones. You want to use new ones because it will not seal up. On your old bolt, this one didn't come with them. You can go ahead and take that old copper washer off there. We just throw it in the drain pan and clean it out later. Clean up your bolt real good. Make sure there's no debris on that sealing surface on the head of the bolt. Put one washer on your bolt. Pass the bolt through the hose. Put the other washer on. Now this one has a little rubber plug in it. Go ahead and take that out. I actually like to save those for using for other things. You'll probably see that in a future video. If you stick around, now would be a good time if you haven't subscribed to jump on that button. Oftentimes on these new calipers, they don't like to thread in all the way by hand. And this is a 11 millimeter head on here. Make sure you're seating that caliper good. Give that a little snug. You don't want to over tighten it because it's a hollow bolt. It will break off relatively easy. Release your hose crimp off tool. Now you got your drain pan down here. Take this little cap off. Come on. Sometimes you need a little screwdriver, a little edge to get underneath that cap. They seal down on top of that bleeder pretty good. 10 millimeter. Loosen that up real good. And while we wait, put the tools away. Okay, slowly but surely we are getting this toolbox set up and a little bit more functional for what we use it for. You notice I didn't put any of the drawer liners in it because in my experience they don't hold up very well. They usually just end up sliding to the back of the drawer and piling up back there and making less space. Things seem to slide around either way, in my opinion. go there. Oh, we need the 10mm yet. So once we have a good drip, good job, Rick. Drop the wrench in the make sure you drop the wrench in the drain pan at least one time. That's like my standard rule of thumb. You gotta make sure you drop your tools in the drain pan. And if you're 4 feet away, they will find a way to ricochet and then go into the drain pan. So don't worry about whether they will make it in there or not. They will. Give everything a good brake cleaning. Reinstall your little rubber cap on the bleeder, because in the future, if you need to use that, that's going to rust up really quick in Minnesota. It's not going to be good. Drain pan out of the way. Take this lug nut off that was on there backwards. Put your tire back on. All right, so we got the brakes installed. We want to go ahead and check the brake fluid level on this thing. But first, you want to get in there and pump the brake pedal. Make sure that that pedal feels good. What that does is it pushes the pistons out to meet the pads, as I've explained in a previous video. But by filling the backside of that piston, that housing, you're dropping your brake fluid level. So if you go ahead and check it before you get in and pump the pedal, and then you're going to finish it up, you go out and drive it, and your low brake fluid lights on, or your brake lights on, depending on how your instrument cluster works. It's because you didn't pump the brakes before you topped it off. You also want to make sure that you know the application and which type of brake fluid you should be using. With the newer vehicles, there's a variety of brake fluids, .3, .4, some are using .5 now. This application is going to be old enough that it's still just standard .3, which in my opinion worked just fine, but we're not here for my opinion. All right, well, a little floor jack maintenance, a little rearranging in the shelf here, and a little brake work on a 2005 Buick Lacrosse. It's not simple. It's not terribly difficult stuff, guys. It's pretty simple. If you got a little bit mechanical know-how, you can get it done. Follow a few instructions, and away you go. We got other things to do to this car, but we're going to do it in a different video because this one's probably getting long enough, let's face it. So if you guys like what I'm doing, throw me a thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't. Ring the bell, get my notifications. Memberships are down there if you want one, and I do appreciate it. Because it's helping us build the channel, man. We'll see you guys again next time.